So what we're going to go over today is we're going to start with some of those larger features that are going to require demos in platform. So we're going to have some opportunities there. And then we also have a feature call out that we're going to go through. So some of those features that are also large, but maybe don't quite require a demo. And then finally, we are going to go over the updated features that are kind of some of those smaller features, still important, still exciting, but that are going to be connected more so to that comprehensive release guide. So our first feature that we're going to go over today is Deep Dive. Super exciting. We're really excited to have this now available to the public. So this feature uses generative AI to analyze your documents and provide evidence-backed narrative responses to natural language questions. And this gives you meaningful insight right from the start. So in order to use Deep Dive, there are some things that you need set up. First, your organization must have an Everlaw AI contract, and your project must be enrolled by an org admin or an Everlaw AI admin. And Deep Dive is useful throughout the life cycle of your case. It helps you set up case strategy, get quick clarity on complex questions that you would otherwise require intensive document review on. The credit usage for Deep Dive is a one-time charge associated with the document for its entire lifetime. And credit usage is based on the billable size of the documents ingested into Deep Dive. This does exclude documents created through production. So once a document is enrolled, there is no reoccurring cost to access that data via Deep Dive, even if it is used across multiple enrolled projects within the same database. The initial document enrollment must be completed before you can begin asking questions in the Deep Dive interface. And depending on the size of your database, this could take some time. So just make sure to get that started right away so you can get using it right away as well. When interacting with Deep Dive, there are a few things to keep in mind. So first, you can ask questions of all of the documents in your case at once, but oftentimes it is better to actually narrow down that document set. So if you do have a specific document set, that is one of the practices that we suggest. And Deep Dive can help by allowing you to ask questions in natural language, but it shouldn't be used as an alternative to the search function. For example, avoid asking questions such as, give me the documents that contain X, Y, and Z. And then finally, we do suggest starting with question words. It's a good place to start. They're not required by any means, but as you're getting practice with some of these question writing, prompt writing, best practices themselves, that is a great starting point. So when interacting with Deep Dive, there are a few things to keep in mind. We do have a few different permission levels. So if you have none, that means that you have no access at all. Ask permission is going to allow you to both ask, view, and delete just your own questions and responses. And then the final and highest permission level is going to be view and ask. And this allows you to both ask and delete your own questions and responses, as well as view all questions and responses asked by others in the project. So let's go ahead and jump into the platform so we can see this in action. Give me 1 second. Okay. There we go. All right, so in order to get to Deep Dive, you're going to navigate to the top of your screen, which is this globe right here. Once we click in, you can see there is a simple dialog where you can ask questions right here. You're going to see the questions that have previously been asked right at the bottom. So if someone on your team has asked something similar, you can look at those responses and at the evidence provided as well. So as with all Everlaw AI features, we want to make it easy for you to verify your results. And so Deep Dive is going to group together a list of possible relevant documents. So you can see here, we have some linked, and then you also see the resources below. Let me just zoom in a little bit. There we go. So here we have our references and how relevant it is, as well as the quote actually pulled. So you're going to see a list of generated facts. Um, okay, so when generating questions, you want to make sure to ask one question at a time, and this will help deep dive be more focused and provide a little bit more nuanced responses to your single question at hand. In addition, deep dive does not take previously asked questions or responses into account when evaluating your current questions, so just bear that in mind when you're generating them. And let's say I wanted to start to work with a data set and I knew very little about it. I might want to ask some open ended questions, get targeted ones to find not only those key documents, but important patterns or information. So here I have a sample of one I asked earlier, which documents are referenced or forwarded the most across different communications in this project. And then we're going to see the breakdown of that. We're going to see the references to how that document was pulled. And then we're also going to see a breakdown of that here, including quotes, quotes used in the quotes, and possible relevant documents. So you have a lot of information that you can actually look at and reference here as well. And then here's another sample of a question. So these were previously asked, and if I wanted to ask a new question, I would just ask it up here. Once I actually input that question, that's when I'm going to get that in-depth narrative response and cite which documents have been referenced in order to generate the answer. And that's going to allow for that quick checking of your responses. You can also select this caret here to see that further drop down, as I mentioned a moment ago. All right, heading back, let me go to slideshow. So next up is fact management. And sorry, folks, my slideshow is being a little funny and it's not letting me have my tabs up at the top. There we go. Okay. So next we have fact management, and fact management is a new suite of tools that enables you to identify and track key events and information as you discover them. And it supports each fact with documents and testimony evidence as appropriate. You can use fact management to construct a case chronology out of a discrete facts organized into one or more timelines. And with this update to include fact management, we have switched some language that was previously referred to, such as the timeline section in Story Builder is now going to be referred to as evidence. A few other changes have been made to account for the release of fact management, which I'm going to go over in our platform demo now. All right, so and to exit out of deep dive, there's just an X in the corner, and then that will bring you back to the home page. So we're going to navigate over to Story Builder for the next portion of our demo. So now you'll see here we have evidence and we have fact timeline. So in order to view a fact timeline and its associated facts, just come over to fact timeline. You'll see that little caret, and you can either go to an already built out one that you've created or create a new timeline. For today's demo, I'm going to go into an already built out one. So at the top, you're going to see the date visualizer across the toolbar. And below that, you're going to see all created facts within that timeline. If you ever want to collapse down this date visualizer section, you can just do that here so you can view everything a little bit clearer. And so just like the evidence page, you can add people and labels and references to each of these stacks. So it's going to look really similar to that, old timeline style that we now call evidence, where you can add people, labels, and references here. And then you can also link evidence to the fact by just clicking this plus icon here. Once you do that, you can either type it in or you can select from a list below. These are documents that have already been added to this evidence panel. They're already in your story. However, if you have a document that you want to add to a fact that has not yet been added to your story, you can just type in either the Bates number or control number, and then just hit add to story. And this is going to not only add it to this fact, but it's also going to add it to your story as a whole. So I'm going to go back to the homepage so I can also show you how to add documents to your timeline, both as batch action or an individual action. So I'm going to open my binder here. And let's say I had these set of documents here, these 9 documents, and I wanted to batch add every single one of them to a specific fact. In order to do that, I would come to this batch icon right here, and then I would go to modify, and then I would scroll down to the bottom, similar to how I would add these documents to my project story. So it's going to be the same setup to add to your story or a deposition. However, now you're going to see where it says select facts. So if you do want to add this, you can just do select facts. And then you can select one or multiple facts that you would like to add it to. You also have the ability to create a new fact and then update it here. Once you have selected the ones that you're looking for, just hit review, link, and then you are set up, and then you're going to hit apply. And now we've added those 9 documents to those associated facts. So in order to do this at individual document level, let's open up a new document. I want to open that up in a new tab. There we go. And then you just navigate over to that Story Builder tab. And similarly, the way that you would add a document to your story is going to stay the same. However, now you're going to see this caret here. You can click into that, and now you're going to have the option to add to story or link it to a fact. And then this is going to be the same dialog box you just saw a moment ago when doing batch actions. So in addition to adding full documents to a fact, you also can add just a snippet of the document using that highlight tool. And again, this is going to be super similar to how you would add a snippet of a document to your story or to a deposition. But now you're going to see that caret there. So you can click in and then also add to your facts this way. So let's say I just wanted to link it there. I can review and then link. And now it's applied. And then after doing that same thing, you can add a description, relevance, connected to facts, add labels, and so on. So let's move into drafts and depositions to see how you would incorporate facts into that workflow. So I'm going to go over to Story Builder. I'm going to go into my deposition here, and I'm going to go over to the deposition view. So whether you're adding to a draft or a deposition, including the facts function is going to be the same. The only thing that's going to be different is with depositions, you have that transcript tab. But as far as working in the body of text, that is going to be the same. So now next to the evidence tab, we also have the facts tab. And you can either add a fact here directly, and then it's going to be available to add into the body of your document. So you can either hit this plus icon or you can drag and drop to now have that fact linked into the body of your document. So facts now, if we go into the exhibit view, are also going to appear alongside testimony and other documents. So it's all going to live in this one place. And then going over to the transcript section, you also have the ability to select a highlighted portion of your testimony, of your transcript. Well, once you select that, then like here, I have one up here. There we go. Then I have the ability, just like I can add to my story, or I can have this caret icon here and then add it to a fact. So we also have some other Story Builder updates. I'm going to go back to my slide deck for that, because another really exciting Story Builder update is that we've also added transcript or deep dives into the transcript tool. So Story Builder now is going to include this, and Deep Dive for Transcript is a generative AI question and answer tool for you to get insights from across all of your deposition transcripts. The underlying technology is similar to the newly available Deep Dive, but it's optimized to answer questions about your transcript rather than your documents themselves. So Deep Dive for Transcript is included and available at no cost for organizations with an Everlaw AI contract. Think of it kind of as that like single action. And this feature must be enabled by an admin at the org level, which will then allow project admins to turn it on for the specific project. So let's go ahead and demo this one as well. I'm going to come back. I'm staying in Story Builder for this. And you may have noticed earlier underneath depositions, we now have Ask All Transcripts. So when I click into there, it's going to be a very similar format to Deep Dive when you're asking across an entire data set or project. You're going to see a drop-down option under here. That's where that lives. And then this is where you can actually input your questions or prompts. So you can select to search across all transcripts, or you can just select a specific transcript that you would like to ask questions about. When generating your questions or prompts, follow best practices when generating AI prompts in general. So that's going to carry over to here. Make sure to be specific, avoid acronyms, make sure names are all the same and avoid aliases when possible. Lead with question words when asking questions, and then ask one question at a time. So for example, I have a question here that I might want to ask just about the Gates deposition. I can then hit send. And then I've actually already generated them down here. Here's a sample of one while that's loading. You're going to see it underneath here. So just like Deep Dive, I can see those direct references in the narrative response, as well as take a closer look by coming down and seeing my citations. So both the citations directly used, and you're also going to see the relevance. All right, moving right along with our next feature. Another very exciting feature that we've recently released is our multiple redaction sets. So previously, including redactions on a document at the time of production was an all or nothing process. You either had to choose all of your redactions burned in upon production or none. So if you needed to redact unique information for a document across various productions or to several different parties, you are needing to manually adjust redactions after one production and before the next. However, with our latest release, we've added functionality allowing you to apply multiple sets of redactions during review, and then simply select the set of redactions you wish to apply when running a unique production. Redaction sets are designed to simplify your production process, and this feature eliminates the need for duplicative effort. That way, you can actually produce the same source documents with two different recipients, with withholding different information for each party. At the same time, if your organization is not in need of this feature, don't worry. It's a toggle on or off option, so you can always continue with your existing workflows as needed. Let's go ahead and see this in action. All right, I'm going to go home for this one. Actually, first, let's go ahead and start in our project settings to see how to set this up from the project admin side of things. So for those project admins on the call, first you're going to go into project settings, go down to general and production tools, just like where you would regularly set up your redactions. However, now you're going to see the ability to toggle on or off those redaction sets. So as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to have this toggled on, but if you would like to, you can do that. Next, you're actually going to create and name your sets. You want to name them something that clearly indicates where the redaction set is going to be applied during production. So for example, I've created 3 here. I have one for party A, one for party B, and then just a set for general redactions, which would apply to any production I run, regardless of the receiving party. PII redactions might go in this set, for example. You'll also notice that you have a document count to the right of this set, and this is just an easy link for administrators to access any document with redactions associated with a given set, so that way you can do quick QA. Beneath that is where you can create those specific stamps for your team to apply during the review process. And you can toggle on or off that ability for reviewers to create their custom stamps in a review window. This feature has not changed. It's still there. It's just an option you may want to turn on when using redaction sets. So at this stage, you won't select specific stamps to fall under each set, but rather reviewers are going to apply a redaction stamp in the review window, and they will also select which set to include the specific redactions in, regardless of which stamp they're using. And this is going to give you flexibility to have the same stamp in multiple redaction sets. For example, a confidential stamp. All right, so let's see what this looks like from the reviewer side of things. So I'm going to open my folder here. and open one of these documents for individual review so we can see. So just as before, reviewers are going to turn on their redaction tool and then select the content that they would like to redact. Then they're going to see that box, but we're going to have a few different options here. So this is where you can actually select that set. So they can select one or multiple redaction sets. And then below that is where they will apply that stamp as well. And then also when we go over into our annotations tab, we're going to see some changes here as well. So now we can go down and we can actually see all of our different redaction sets that we have set up. So you can see just on the page, we have the different redaction stamps, still transparent in the same way, but now you're just going to see the different stamps associated with each one. However, if you want to see which set each of these is, like you want to preview what each redaction set will look like, you also have the ability using this eye icon to toggle on and off, so that way you can just see each set. So for example, if I wanted to look through this document and see my redaction sets for Party A, I would just toggle off the view for general redactions in Party B. And then I can click through and I can see all of my redactions issued throughout this document. And that would go with, any of the sets that you've created. I also want to note that for the sake of time, we're not going to review this, but another important update using these redaction sets is that our redaction search term has been updated to allow you to search for documents, not only based on the stamp applied, but the redaction sets that they are associated with as well. So likewise, you can batch apply redactions that you also want to associate with a given set. Last but not least, let's review how you actually choose your sets when it comes time for production. So I'm going to go over to our productions tab, go into protocols, and I have a pre-built out protocol that I'm going to demo with. So I'm just going to skip right ahead to that. So you'll now notice, for those of you that were used to running productions, you might have seen these two sections combined into one, but now redactions and then text and native are separated from one another. So now you have the ability to kind of configure redactions a little bit further. You're going to see more options for the redactions that you want to apply, and it's going to be its own step. So from here, you can either choose to apply all redactions regardless of set, or you can choose one or multiple redaction sets to apply to the production. As you make these selections, you're also going to notice this blue number at the top is updating to reflect your selection down here. You can always click into this again to see those documents and do that Q&A of your choices before actually running the production. So a lot more options as far as redactions go, both with setting up those redactions in the review process and in production. All right, I'm going to hop back into our slide deck so we can go over a few more of these updates. So another one that we have for this round of release is that Everlaw's Workday directory integration is now going to be an option. So the majority of the setup is going to take place in Workday, and this configured synchronization eliminates the need for manual data entry and ensures high accuracy, as updates from Workday will sync automatically at a cadence set by the user on the Workday platform. So to actually begin using the Workday integration, org admins or legal hold org admins must first navigate to the organization home. From there, you would select legal holds and then choose directories. You can create a new Workday directory by selecting that plus icon, the new directory, and then choose the Workday directory option. Once you open the new Workday directory wizard, follow the given steps. And to complete the integration setup in Workday, you will need two values from this Workday integration page, which is the target HTTP address and a generated API key. Next, you will set up the integration in Workday. If you want to learn more about this process, please see the comprehensive release guide, which we do have linked in the Docs tab. Next up, we have the ability to edit extracted values. And this is going to be for all users that have AI features turned on. So extractions use generative AI to identify and isolate specific information in your documents, such as dates, locations, and people. With this release, you can edit values, you can delete values, and you can add values, which allows you to make sure that all the values for a given extraction field are accurate and complete before export. In addition to the ability to actually edit values, there are some more improvements to extractions. For example, now when you navigate to the Hit Highlight tab from the Review window panel. So previously, activating Hit Highlights for extractions created new Hit Highlights in the Hit Highlight tab. And now you activate and navigate the Hit Highlight from within the Review Assistant panel. So everything's a little bit more self-contained. Another update is the edit field configurations from the review assistant panel. So now you can edit the title and description of an extraction field from within the document review window. Previously, you could only do this from the results table or in the project settings, but now you can, again, do it all at once. And then finally, delete extractions for specific fields. So each field with extractions now has its own option to delete responses. And prior to this, there was only the option to delete the responses of all generated fields. I am going to do a super quick demo of this just so you can all see what this looks like in practice. So I'm going to open up one of my documents here and go over to my review assistant and over to extractions. Let me see. I actually have one that already has it generated. Let me open another folder really quick. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. Okay. So navigating over to extraction. So now you're going to see here, this is where that update is. So I've already generated some extractions for this document, but let's say not all of this content extracted was accurate. I now have a few different options just from this three-dot menu here. So first, I can actually configure the fields themselves, so I can come in and change it. And then I also have the ability to copy it to a note or copy to a clipboard. Another change is how you can actually search by them. So if I go to this search tab here, so now you're going to see rather than needing to go into the Hits Highlight tab down here, it's all in one place. This is going to allow your tools to all be in one spot. So that way you can move through your workflows a little easier. And you can edit the text of the extraction. You can redact as well. You can redact all, remove a redaction, and even toggle through the instances of that extraction appearing. And you can also delete the individual redactions as well by just coming in here and doing delete. So this is where you would edit, and this is where you delete. In addition, you can also add new values as well. And all of these updates are going to allow for more accurate external reporting. Next up in our release is the ability to refresh all searches in one folder. So with this release, you can refresh all searches in one folder. And this is going to allow you to see the latest result counts for all searches in a folder without having to separately update each search from the results table. Anyone with at least view access to the folder can refresh these searches. So super quick demo on this one because it's pretty straightforward. You have your folder created with your searches in it. When you click in, you're now going to see this handy dandy little refresh button, and that's just going to refresh every single search you have in a given folder. All right, up next, we have our ability to assign user groups during the assignments process. So assignment group creators and editors can now allocate review work assignments and grant self-permissions to user groups, removing the requirement to select individual users for initial work distribution. And this option allows for faster allocation of documents to large teams. So really going to save time when you have those big teams that you need to batch out assignments for. The existing option to select individual users still remains available if that works for your workflow. And you can also leverage user groups when batching out unreviewed documents after an assignment has been created. So there's a few different ways that you can incorporate it into the assignments tool. The option to allocate the initial batch of documents to users and user groups is available in the Add Document Assignment Group dialog, which is what you can see here on the screen. So once you actually get to the Assign User section, that's where then you have the ability to select groups. We also have some updates to the review window. So the review window's edit layouts specifically have been moved to the top of the page. So previously they were down at the bottom, and now they are up at the top. You're no longer going to see that save and edit icon either. You are now going to see this 3-dot menu as well as the edit here, and that's where those tools are going to live. In addition to this, your most recent unsaved layout is now going to be auto-preserved, so you can return to it. So if you've configured a layout and you didn't actually save it in order to share it or use it in the future, it will still be automatically preserved. We do have some additional updates as well. So alongside all of these big game-changing features, we also have a set of additional updates and improvements. So you will now be able to stay signed in while reviewing long audio and video files. Playback automatically keeps your session active, so you're not going to be logged out mid-review. You also now can choose the option of the metadata sheet if included when you export PDFs. And this is going to give you more control over the format of your exports. You must have the PDF export permission to export these PDFs. So just know that ahead of time. Previously, the metadata sheet for each document, if selected for inclusion in the report, was always before the relevant document. Now the export to PDF dialog has a place metadata sheet setting, which is going to let you actually choose either to have it before the document or after the document. And this new option is available everywhere that you can export PDFs. And in addition to that update, we have some other ones, including the word count. So now in the drafts and deposition bodies, as well as the deposition summary, you're going to see a word count for everything that is appearing in the body of those documents. We've also updated the work product export CSV to reduce re-import errors. So these changes include now the Bates or control number header is now called Bates/control number, and you're not going to see that ampersand after it. Or sorry, not ampersand, the pound sign after that hashtag. In addition, the nBates/control, again, that hashtag sign is now just going to be called nBates/control number. So we're actually getting rid of that pound sign or that hashtag. And then this change addresses the issues that arose when performing a recommended find and replace on the hashtag to create a new Bates prefix, which could inadvertently alter column headers and cause import problems. So as a result, the imports of work product from zip exports should be more consistent and reliable. In addition to that, users can now filter the results table topics column by sentiment. And this is going to allow you to quickly find documents with a given sentiment within a large data set directly from the results table. So you're not going to need to run a new search or anything like that. Your computer screen will now stay awake during native uploads if you keep the browser review window tab with the upload running, open, and visible. And this is going to prevent potential sleep-related interruptions to uploads, especially those longer ones. When you send out a new or updated legal notice, the confirmation recipient list of the confirmation email, which was previously called the summary email, now automatically saves for later confirmation emails within the same legal hold notice. And then finally, we have improved the results table toolbar. So now Everlaw AI tools are available via their own Everlaw AI button. So no longer are you going to go to batch modify where you would do modify redactions. Now it's going to be its own separate button, which actually I can show you really quick. If we are looking at one of our documents, now you're just going to see it's there. So it's no longer in batch. It's now just in its own little tab. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you all being a part of this very exciting release, and hope you all are coming away with some more tools to make your Everlaw journey even better. Thank you so much. Have a great day.